Um, uh, Before I do that, I'd like to address kind of preemptively some questions that some people might be having about the doctrine and religion. And so I'd like to kind of answer these or address some of these questions, and then I'll open it up to some questions that you might have. So today's the pet memorial service, and just to kind of reiterate, we observe this to say that all animals are included within the realm of Amida Buddha's great compassion. And for this reason, then, we observe their memorial service as a way to try and reflect on their lives, as a way for us to connect to the truth of the Buddha Dharma. And as mentioned in many talks, everything is causes and conditions. Going comes up. This word comes up a lot, and I've used it a lot. And it means causes and conditions. This means that everything is a way for us to see the truth in the Buddha Dharma, which we call Amida Buddha's great compassion. So everything, even a tragic event, to sudden deaths in the people that we know, to our connections with our loved ones, both human and not human, or every mundane moment, actually, as well as every momentous moment in our lives, become a way for us to connect to the truth of the Buddha Dharma. The only thing is whether we have the proper upbringing to be able to understand that. And I say the word upbringing quite intentionally here to say that our karmic conditions of listening to the Buddha Dharma bring us to understand the truth of this teaching. And when we have that proper nurturing, we then even more so start to see the profundity and the truth of the Buddha Dharma. It's kind of like the phrase, we need money to make money. This idea that in order to kind of be able to become even more rich, we need to have like certain amount of money in the first place, right? To get the ball rolling. Well, in the same way, the Buddha Dharma is like that. When we have the patience and the willingness to open up our hearts to the Buddha's great compassion, which means we listen to the Buddha Dharma, then we start to see more and more the truth of the Buddha Dharma. Then that makes us even more and more want to listen to the Buddha Dharma, right? And then the more we do so, even more so, we become more willing to embrace this teaching, and it just kind of compounds on top of each other until our entire worldview is completely immersed in the Buddha Dharma. Another question that I get is, why do we chant? Okay, so we do this every week, right? And it sounds kind of like, I get it, okay, 'cause I understand, because I used to feel that way too. And even now, sometimes it's like, oh, why are we doing this every week? It's the same chant, right? So we chant, well, first of all, what we're chanting is the excerpts from the three Pure Land Sutras and commentaries, okay? And these three Pure Land Sutras are the larger sutra, the Contemplation Sutra, and the smaller sutra. Okay, and from these three, we're reciting the excerpts. So the Jusege and the Sambutsige both come from the larger sutra. Okay, and then the what else is there? Junirai. Junirai is actually a commentary written by one of the Pure Land masters, Nagarjuna. What else is there? Shoshinge. Shoshinge was written by Shinan Shonin himself, praising the larger sutra and then the seven Pure Land masters. Sambujo, the short one, that's kind of melodic. That is written by Shandao, who was also another Pure Land master. Okay, and all of these sutras are in praise of the Buddha and the Buddha's teachings. We recite these sutras as a way to reflect on those teachings. So back in the day, before YouTube and before the tape recorder and the record and all these things, right? The only way to memorize something was through constant repetition, right? And so memorization, if you know or not, is done the best through voicing what you hear. Okay, if it's like, for example, like when I was in Japanese school, like when they make you do kanji, when they make you do kanji, you have to write it out, the kakijun, right, in the air. They make you write that in the air, and by that movement, it makes you your the muscle memory, I guess you can say, will be input in your brain, and it helps your brain to memorize these things. So when you recite something, right, what you're told, it's easier to remember as opposed to just reading it in your head. When you have to recite it, your again, muscle memory is helping you to assist in memorization. So the recitation of the words or chanting kind of over time became this mainstay. So what we are doing is taking part in an age-old ritual of repetition, of reciting what the Buddha taught us. And this eventually became highly ritualized and formalized to what we know of it today. But that's the base original word where it came from. Okay. So chanting has a very concrete effect on the human mind and the psyche. The melody and the monotone of sound coming from the voice has a very soothing effect. It calms the mind and heart through its cadence, but also in its tone. And as such, when we chant, we are actually preparing our hearts and minds to be able to have a quote unquote clear channel, so to speak, that opens our hearts up to receive the teachings of the Buddha. Chanting helps us to get in the right and focused mindset that becomes poised and settled in hearing the Buddha Dharma. During World War II, on the Japanese side, they would send chaplains out onto the battlefield and they would chant sutras before going into battle or when the soldiers have died. The one thing that the other soldiers commonly said they wanted to see from the chaplains was, rather than the Dharma messages, they wanted to see the chaplains chant the sutras on the battlefields. Isn't that interesting? So the soldiers didn't really care about the Dharma messages per se. It was more about the chanting that was important to them. So chanting has a real effect on the mind state of the individual, and it is a beautiful combination of both the teaching and the doctrine itself, while at the same time having this practical effect on the psyche of the individual. Okay, it's an interesting blend of these two. So as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, then we participate in chanting not because it gives us good health or by chanting we somehow become better Buddhists, right? Or that we can attain good luck or attain good fortune, right? Not for these reasons. These are actually the precise reasons we do not chant. Okay. Other schools of Buddhism might subscribe to this understanding, but we don't do that as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists. Because in our view, chanting sutras is not for the purpose of self-benefit or the passing on of merit to other people, which in turn benefits ourselves, right? It's not done for those purposes. Rather, we chant sutras to praise the Buddha's virtues and for providing us a path to spiritual liberation and to ready ourselves to be able to receive the Buddha Dharma. Okay. So another question that I get is, why don't we do sitting meditation? Okay. So this touches on a number of different issues and a topic that can potentially open up a whole can of worms. Okay, so I'm not going to go in too much detail, but the first question I have towards that is, what is meditation? Okay, because in the answer that I just provided regarding chanting sutras and how it prepares our hearts and minds to receive the Buddha Dharma, then it can be argued that chanting, right, is a form of meditation. Furthermore, listening to Dharma messages, participating in gathas, right? These are all engaging in a form of meditation because we are contemplating on the Buddha's teachings. Heck, the whole Sunday service, right, from the kancho all the way to the end, right, is meditation itself, right? So, but however, if by meditation we mean specifically sitting meditation, then we do not, as a Buddhist school, recognize that as our official practice. Our official practice is to listen to the Buddha's teaching of great compassion. And that's it. Nothing else is required. We also have to keep in mind that a lot of what informs us of what Buddhism is supposed to be is actually pushed on us by what the outside mainstream media and popular culture tells us Buddhism is supposed to be. Okay, and this has been a problem since Buddhism was introduced to America at the World's Parliament of Religions in 1893, held in Chicago. That entire endeavor was to exhibit Christianity's dominance and superiority over all other world religions. And since then, Buddhism has always had to struggle with being the underdog, and Buddhism has always had to be discussed within the parameters of Christian themes and doctrine. So I could go into much more detail about this, but I'll just bore you, so I won't go on further than that. But I just wanted to say that this is the history of Buddhism and what it's had to face in America, and more specifically, Jodo Shinshu Buddhism as well. And we're still dealing with this struggle in many respects today. So kind of keep that in mind as a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist practicing in America today. So getting back to our conversation then, in our 800-year tradition, sitting meditation was never a central form of practice. So then one might say, well, 800 years in Japan is 800 years in Japan. This is here in America. And in America, many Buddhists participate in sitting meditation, right? To which I would say that I don't disagree with that, right? If you feel that sitting meditation is an important part of who you are as a Buddhist, and that it helps you to become more reflective of Amida Buddha's great compassion, then please continue to do that, and do what you feel is comfortable and what helps what you feel helps you. But as an official practice, sitting meditation is not our central practice, nor do we say that it is a requirement that you must do as a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist. It's kind of like a pro football player, and asking that pro football player to practice doing the butterfly stroke in swimming. I mean, it has its benefits, and it might help that person in a very indirect way to become a better football player. But to a football player, there might be other training practices that might be higher on the priority list of things to do for a football player, right? And in much the same way, for Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, sitting meditation is okay, right? It's not wrong. But what is far more crucial is whether that person has truly received the message of Amida Buddha's great compassion through listening. And that listening can be done in so many different ways. And that is why it is very hard to pin down exactly in concrete terms what Jodo Shinshu Buddhists do, right? Because listening is a very abstract term, right? So the keyword listening here is very important. And as Shinan Shonin explains, the arising of true entrusting is the most difficult of all difficulties. Okay? So this is what we have to kind of keep in mind. I hope that's clear. I'm not saying that sitting meditation is wrong, okay? I'm not saying that by doing sitting meditation, you are not a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, right? I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that we should be clear what our objective as a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist is, which is to constantly be aware or try to be aware of Amida Buddha's great compassion by placing it at the center of our spiritual lives. Okay. So with that, I would like to end, but I'd like to open this up to kind of any questions that people might have regarding, and it doesn't have to be what I just talked about. It could be about, like the flowers or the adornments or the obutsudan, what I'm wearing, the bell, or I don't know, anything that you might have questions about. Yeah, so those all.
Sensei, this
Yes.
is Judy. You mentioned that chanting the sutras were based on three major sutras: the larger sutra, the smaller sutra. I didn't get the name of the second one you had mentioned. I'm sorry.
Contemplation Sutra. Contemplation Sutra.
Oh, contemplation. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The only one that we sit and do in its entirety is the smaller sutra, because it's about a 15-minute chant, and that's the one that goes Nyoze Gamo, and then he hit the setaku, the
Okay.
the sticks.
And you had mentioned before, I think these sutras are not Japanese, though, are they?
No, they're written in Kanbun, which is a Sino-Japanese language that's no longer used. It's kind of like Latin in terms of the English standard. Yeah. But back in the day, that was what the educated class used to write and communicate.
So the translation that we see in the service book is pretty close to capturing, I think, the essence of the sutras.
Yes, yeah,
in
yes.
English. Okay.
Yeah, the English, yeah, those translations are good. They have since been updated, but they're not like way off the mark or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So when Buddhism, our sutra chantings or our the Kyogyo Shinsho, what Shinran wrote, was initially translated into English. We didn't really have the proper language, so we borrowed from Christian terms and Old English. Yeah. So we use words like thou, thy, there's all these different words that we borrowed. But since then, I think Buddhism has kind of taken hold here in America, and Jodo Shinshu has been kind of is cognizant of the words that have heavy Judeo-Christian kind of nuances. So we try to use different words. Like, for example, Shinjin, we try not to translate that as faith right now. We use the word true and trusting.
Is that also why then the older Gathas sound very almost like Christian-like too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a number of reasons why they did that, but yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Sure. questions?
Hey, Sensei, this is Kyle.
Hi.
Hey, so why do we have like 2, 3 treasures and a 3-fold refuge?
Yeah, so that's also a translation issue. There have been a number of different translations, I guess, that the Ministers Association felt were good translations, and then the story that I was told was that they debated actually on which one to use, but then they couldn't they couldn't come to a decision on one, and so then they ended up putting in 3. I think there's 3 right now, right, in this book. There's 3 different versions of the threefold refuge, which is also called the 3 treasures. But they're all they're different translations, and so they're kind of, you can just you can, they're not one of them is wrong, or none of them, one of them is the official one. It's just a matter of preference in terms of the usage of which terms and stuff like that. Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else I wanted to say about translation? Okay, yeah. Any other questions or concerns or comments?
Good morning, Sensei. Walt Fuji here.
Hey.
Hey, I really enjoy the chants, though. I mean, like Ginny Rai and Elise. I think they're really. Well, there was a time I used to wake up. I used to put on Gregorian chants.
Yeah.
They're really uplifting, and I
Yeah.
really enjoy the community.
Yeah, I agree.
That was one thing I've gone to church in a while, but when I did,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I just enjoyed the whole community of it, and I enjoyed the longer chant that you spoke of, using the wooden blocks, I guess.
Yeah.
And just to get the timing, almost like taiko in that sense.
Yeah. That's true.
But it's so unifying. It really brings us to this point of communality with each other. So it's anyway. I just wanted
Thank you very much. Yeah, that touches on another thing, point that I missed. Thanks for bringing that up. If you ever go to Honzan, which is headquarters in Kyoto, and then they do the morning chant at 6 a.m., there's like, at least on any given day, at least 150 people there who are doing the chant. No matter how hot it gets or how cold it is in the morning, they're chanting. And when they chant, it's amazing. Like, there's just this one voice, right? That's this in the ether. And then when you chant, you participate, you channel into this like kind of one voice, and you really do lose yourself in the chanting. It's really amazing the effect that chanting has. And it's almost kind of like, like a religious high, I guess you could say, that everybody is commonly participating into this one voice, and it's very powerful. Thank you. Yeah, that's unfortunately one of the things that Zoom won't be able to capture. Yeah, I do kind of miss hearing everybody's voice, and then there's always that inevitable one person that's like way off, it's like, the pitch is way off. But that's fine. That's good. As you are. That's good. Yeah.
Sensei.
Hey,
Sensei, it's Nancy.
Yes, Nancy. Hi, hello.
Hi. One of our former ministers, we had a kind of like a study class before service, and this former minister said, okay, we are going to do walking meditation. And he explained, and it was explained how to do this. And so we walked around the Hondo, I think twice, okay? And then we stopped, and she turned around and she said, what were you thinking during this walking meditation? And I said, I was saying to myself, Namo Amida Butsu. And the minister, you weren't supposed to say that. And the minister, it's just like, I was shocked. And I was told we were to think, right foot, heel down, toe up, left foot, heel down, toe up. And I was never like, yelled at for saying Namo Amida Butsu, and it kind of shocked me. And I just would like your opinion. I'm not going to, name the minutes, but this was, like 10, 15 years ago. And it just kind of struck me is, could you please?
Yeah, so yes, so the attempts of incorporating meditative practices or various forms of meditation into the services, it was an attempt to kind of meet the needs of, or meet the wants of what people, wanted. And so it was an attempt to kind of attract people to the temple, right, and get them to participate in the temple. And I get where they're coming from, and I understand what they're trying to do, right? But in terms of my personal humble opinion, we have a long-standing tradition, right? And we've been doing what we've been doing 800 years since the time of, that's just counting from Shinan, right? And so don't break anything, or why fix something that's not broken, right? And so is my opinion. And I think that we have our views of what we do in terms of what we feel is important, in terms of what a Sunday service is and how we want to be Buddhists, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same as what other Buddhist schools do in terms of their practices, right? And that's okay, right? And I don't feel like we need to adjust to what other people want us to be. And that's what I'm trying to kind of portray here. And so in saying that then, and also when it comes to saying the Nembutsu, you should never be ridiculed for that. Saying the Nembutsu is appropriate at any time, at anywhere in your life. Okay, so you could I was told when I was listening to the teachings, they said say the Nembutsu while you're going shishi, right? Or when you wake up in the morning, anytime is okay to say the Nembutsu, because at any point true reality is always with you. You are embraced within true reality. Nembutsu is an affirmation that you are embraced within this true reality. The Nembutsu is not something that you do for is not asking for any kind of like thing, no petitionary prayer, right? No, you're not asking for anything. It's just affirming that you are embraced within true reality. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any, maybe I could take like one more question or comment or anything?